Something happened between men and women that no one can quite explain. A fracture so deep, most people don't even realize it exists. You feel it when you walk through the world. The tension, the silent hostility, the sense that we've all been put on opposite sides of a war we never signed up for. One side told to rise up, the other told to shut up, and somewhere between those slogans, love quietly died. It wasn't always like this. There was a time when men and women saw each other as partners. Two halves of a whole. Not competitors, not enemies, just complements in a shared struggle to survive. But then something shifted, slowly, subtly, and the world began to whisper in her ear. You don't need him. You're better off alone. He's the reason you're unhappy. At first it sounded like liberation, but over time it became poison. See, society learned something powerful. Divide the sexes and you divide the family. Divide the family and you control the future. Because a divided man and woman don't build anything together. They consume separately. They spend separately. They vote separately. They suffer separately. And the system profits from that suffering. So, the culture went to work, rebranding men as villains and women as victims. Every movie, every commercial, every headline, the same story told 1,000 different ways. The bumbling husband who can't do anything right, the toxic boyfriend who ruins her self-esteem, the hero story where empowerment always means leaving him behind, and we applauded it. We called it progress. But progress toward what? Ask the average woman today what she thinks of men, and you'll hear exhaustion, distrust, resentment. Ask the average man what he thinks of women, and you'll hear bitterness, confusion, silence. Both sides are hurting, but neither side knows who started the fire. Only that they've been burned. It's easy to forget that this didn't happen overnight. It was engineered over decades. An idea slipped into our collective mind. That partnership was oppression, that dependence was weakness, and that love was a trap. And once that seed was planted, everything changed. Men stopped leading because they were told leadership was control. Women stopped trusting because they were told trust was submission. And what used to be chemistry turned into competition. Now, we live in a world where everyone's trying to prove they don't need anyone. A culture of isolation disguised as empowerment. And yet, everyone is lonelier than ever. That's the cruel genius of division. It doesn't destroy you all at once. It convinces you to destroy yourself. One broken connection at a time. And when you finally look around and realize you've won your independence, but lost your intimacy, it's already too late. The great divide isn't between men and women. It's between what we were taught to be and what we were meant to be. It didn't happen in classrooms or protests. It happened on screens. Not through force, through fiction. The stories changed first. Once upon a time, love was the prize. Now, love is the problem. The man who protected her became the man she needed protection from. And every generation of women grew up watching men fall, clumsy, cruel, careless, until it felt normal. That's how programming works. You don't need to destroy the truth. You just need to bury it under enough entertainment. Think about it. For decades, every sitcom made the father a joke. Every commercial made the man an idiot. Every drama made him the villain. And we laughed, not realizing we were laughing at the very foundation of stability itself. Hollywood didn't need to burn masculinity. It just needed to mock it until no one respected it. The new religion wasn't built in churches. It was built in pixels, flashing lights, emotional music, perfect faces saying imperfect things. You don't pray to gods anymore. You scroll through influencers. You don't seek wisdom, you seek validation. And the priests of this new faith are the algorithms. They decide what you see, what you feel, what you believe. They whisper, men are dangerous. Love is slavery. Independence is salvation. And millions repeat it like gospel, thinking they found freedom when they only found isolation. See, media doesn't sell you truth. It sells you identity. It tells women who they should be: powerful, defiant, untouchable, but never peaceful, never loving, never trusting. It tells men who they can't be: protective, assertive, masculine. Without being labelled controlling or toxic, this isn't empowerment, it's reprogramming. They replace balance with polarity, partnership with pride, and unity with resentment. And the result? A culture where men are ashamed to be men and women are ashamed to need them. It's no accident. A man and woman who trust each other don't spend as much. They don't need as much validation. They build homes, not empires of insecurity. And that's bad business. So, the system keeps feeding both sides illusions. To women, endless self-worship disguised as self-love. To men, endless distraction disguised as freedom. Both end up empty. Both end up angry. And both think the other one is to blame. This is the quiet genius of social engineering. Convince the sexes they're enemies, and you'll never need to control them directly. They'll police each other, mock each other, cancel each other. And while they're busy fighting over who's more oppressed, someone else is cashing in on the chaos. That's the world we live in now, where pixels replace people and outrage replaces intimacy, where you can be surrounded by connection and still feel completely alone. The screens taught us who to hate, and we obeyed, not because we were evil, but because it was easier than facing the truth. We were engineered to forget how to love. Feminism didn't start as a weapon. It started as a whisper, a cry for fairness in a world that often forgot women's worth. The right to vote, the right to work, the right to choose. Those were noble fights, and history remembers them well. But somewhere along the way, that whisper was hijacked. Someone realized that if you could take a movement born from love and twist it into resentment, you could reshape an entire civilization. So, they changed the message. It stopped being "women deserve respect" and became "women don't need men." And from that point on, feminism stopped being about equality and became about supremacy. The irony is brutal. The movement that once demanded balance now fuels imbalance. The ideology that promised freedom now feeds division. And the war it created wasn't between men and women, but between women and their own nature. They told her she didn't need protection, so she learned to fight everyone. They told her she didn't need love, so she learned to numb herself. They told her men were the problem, so she became suspicious of the very people who once built the world around her safety. And what did men do? They retreated. They stopped leading. They stopped offering. They stopped caring. Because when every gesture is seen as manipulation, every strength is labelled as control, and every mistake is framed as oppression, eventually good men stop showing up at all. That's how the system wins. You can't enslave a united people, but you can enslave a lonely one. When feminism became an ideology instead of a cause, corporations saw opportunity. They realised a divided home spends more than a united one. So they sold independence like perfume, a luxury fragrance for the soul. They told her empowerment meant consumption, that being strong meant being separate. And while she bought the dream, they sold her everything she needed to maintain it. But here's the cruel truth. Independence without love isn't strength. It's isolation. It's the illusion of power built on the fear of vulnerability. And the men, they learned to survive alone too. Not because they wanted to, but because the world taught them their presence was toxic. So they adapted, stoic, silent, detached. And now two halves of humanity drift through life, pretending they don't miss each other. This was never a war of genders. It was a war of psychology, a war waged by systems that profit from resentment, by narratives that feed insecurity, by movements that forgot their roots. Feminism was meant to free women. Instead, it freed corporations to sell them their own reflection. Polished, lonely, and afraid to admit she still longs for connection. And the saddest part? They told her this was progress. But progress that destroys harmony isn't evolution, it's manipulation. Once upon a time, value came from what you did. Now, it comes from how much attention you can get. We live in the age of mirrors, where the reflection matters more than the reality, and the loudest pain wins the most applause. And the people running this circus know exactly what they're doing. They turned human emotion into digital currency. Pain became content. Outrage became marketing. And gender resentment, that became the best-selling story of all. The platforms don't care about truth. They care about engagement. And nothing engages like anger. So they built an algorithmic machine that rewards victimhood, because victims post more, comment more, share more. It feels good to be wronged. It feels powerful to be pitied. And the more people identify with their wounds, the more they stay plugged in. That's why every scroll feels like therapy and trauma at the same time. One post tells you men are trash. The next says women are manipulative. Back and forth. Dopamine. Outrage. Validation. Emptiness. It's not information anymore. It's addiction disguised as awareness. Every like is a drop of dopamine. Every share is a hit of belonging. Every viral clip whispering, "You're right to hate them." And both sides fall for it. Women are told their suffering is sacred. Men are told their pain doesn't matter. And both are too busy defending their identities to notice they're being farmed like emotional livestock. See, validation is the new control mechanism. It doesn't command you. It seduces you. It gives you the illusion of importance while quietly stealing your peace. It tells her, "You're perfect just as you are," and tells him, "You're never enough." That's how you create imbalance. That's how you ensure the war never ends. Because when a woman believes she's flawless, she stops growing. When a man believes he's worthless, he stops trying. And the gap between them widens until love can't survive in the middle. Social media didn't invent narcissism. It industrialized it. It built entire empires on self-obsession and self-pity. And every post, every story, every argument online feeds a $1 trillion machine that thrives on division. Think about it. When was the last time you saw a viral video celebrating harmony? Unity doesn't trend. Conflict does. And so, we perform for the algorithm. We become our own propagandists. We brand our trauma. We sell our outrage. And we call it authenticity. But authenticity isn't exposure. It's integrity. And the internet killed that the moment it made pain profitable. Now everyone's addicted to being seen, but no one actually wants to be understood. That's the final trick of cultural engineering. They don't have to make you hate each other. They just have to make you addicted to proving that you're the one who's been hurt more. Every war leaves behind casualties. And this one, the war between men and women, has more bodies than anyone dares to count. Not on battlefields, but in bedrooms, in courtrooms, in the silent spaces between text messages that used to be love letters. You can feel it everywhere. The exhaustion, the distrust, the quiet sadness people carry in their eyes. We were promised empowerment, but what we got was emptiness. We were promised freedom, but what we built was isolation. The family, once the foundation of civilization, has become collateral damage. Divorce isn't an exception anymore. It's the expectation. Children grow up watching their parents play tug-of-war with love. Fathers fade from the picture. Mothers carry both roles until they burn out. And the next generation learns that partnership is pain, that connection only leads to loss. This is the legacy of engineered division. See, when men stop trusting women, they stop building with them. And when women stop respecting men, They stop believing in them. The polarity that once fueled love, masculine and feminine, protector and nurturer, has turned into an ideological civil war. Now, every date feels like a negotiation. Every relationship feels like a power struggle. Every act of affection feels like a risk. People don't fall in love anymore. They calculate it. They bring trauma instead of tenderness, defenses instead of devotion. And who benefits? Not the families, not the children, not the people who still believe in loyalty. No, the system benefits. The more broken we become, the easier we are to control. A lonely man spends more. A lonely woman consumes more. A broken home is 2 tax returns instead of 1. This isn't conspiracy, it's psychology. Because the moment you destroy the family, you destroy identity. And when people no longer know who they are, they'll buy anything that promises to tell them. That's why the modern world feels hollow. Because it is. We traded belonging for branding. We replaced partnership with performance. And now we scroll through strangers for comfort because we've forgotten how to hold someone without suspicion. You can't build strong societies on weak connections. You can't raise stable children in unstable homes. And you can't have peace between men and women when every narrative tells them to fear each other. The truth is, we didn't evolve. We regressed. We became sophisticated animals with trust issues. We learned to chase pleasure, but forgot how to build meaning. We mastered communication, but lost connection. And the cruelest part? We call this progress. But look around. The loneliest generation in history is the most empowered one. The most connected society is the most disconnected from love. That's not coincidence. That's consequence. Because when you teach people to hate the ones they were born to love, you don't just destroy relationships. You destroy humanity itself. Every lie has an expiration date, and the lie that men and women are enemies is starting to rot. You can feel it. Beneath the sarcasm, beneath the bitterness, beneath the endless scrolling, something inside people is breaking, not out of weakness, but out of longing. Because no matter how loud the propaganda gets, our biology remembers, our souls remember. The masculine and feminine were never meant to compete. They were designed to complete. Somewhere deep down, we all know this. That's why, even after all the heartbreak, people still crave partnership. They still dream of home. They still look for someone to hold when the world feels like chaos. See, the human spirit isn't easily reprogrammed. You can bury the truth beneath decades of manipulation, but you can't erase the instinct to connect. That's the beginning of awakening. Not rebellion, but remembrance. It starts quietly. A man realizes his strength isn't toxic when it's guided by love. A woman realizes her softness isn't weakness when it's anchored in respect. They stop seeing each other as threats and start remembering what it means to build, to trust, to need each other without shame. Because needing each other was never the problem. It was the point. But awakening doesn't come easy. You have to grieve what was lost. The years wasted hating the opposite sex. The relationship sabotaged by pride. The love traded for attention. The peace sacrificed for power. You have to admit you were tricked. That your pain was marketed to you. That your independence was monetized. That your emotions were weaponized for someone else's gain. And when that truth finally sinks in, anger gives way to clarity. Clarity gives way to compassion. And compassion gives way to unity. Because once you see the pattern, you stop playing the game. You stop needing validation from systems that profit from your suffering. You stop blaming each other and start questioning the architects who built the walls between you. That's where real power begins. Not in separation, but in understanding. Not in dominance, but in balance. Not in rebellion, but in restoration. The awakening isn't loud. It doesn't trend. It doesn't get sponsored. It happens in small moments. A couple choosing forgiveness instead of revenge. A man choosing integrity over ego. A woman choosing trust over fear. Those quiet acts of rebellion against division are the first signs that something ancient is returning. Because deep down, men and women were never meant to fight each other. They were meant to fight for each other, against everything that tried to tear them apart. And when enough people remember that, the world as we know it will start to heal. That's the awakening. Not the creation of something new, but the remembrance of what we should have never forgotten. Every empire of lies eventually collapses. And when the dust settles, all that remains is the truth. Men and women were never meant to be at war. The real enemy was never each other. It was the system that taught us to fear connection, the culture that profited from our mistrust, the voices that convinced us love was weakness. But the truth is, love is rebellion now. Loyalty is resistance. And unity, that's the revolution no one saw coming. The bridge between men and women was never destroyed overnight. It crumbled slowly under the weight of pride, propaganda, and pain. Brick by brick, we replaced trust with ego, understanding with accusation, partnership with power struggles. But what was built by human hands can be rebuilt by human hearts. The antidote to division isn't found in movements or hashtags. It's found in the way we choose to treat each other, in how we speak, how we forgive, how we listen. A man who reclaims his strength without arrogance and uses it to protect, not dominate. He becomes a light in the dark. A woman who embraces her softness without shame and uses it to nurture, not manipulate. She becomes the balance he's been missing. Together, they become what society fears most, a union that cannot be controlled. Because when masculine and feminine energy align, they create life, not just biologically, but spiritually. They build homes, ideas, empires that last. They raise children who aren't confused about who they are, because they saw love modelled in balance, not brokenness. That's the future the architects of division never planned for. A world where men don't apologise for being strong, and women don't apologise for being feminine. Where competition turns back into cooperation. Where both can stand tall, not against each other, but beside each other. It won't happen overnight. It will happen conversation by conversation, relationship by relationship, truth by truth. It starts when a man stops blaming and starts leading with love. When a woman stops resenting and starts trusting again. When both realise that peace isn't something you find, it's something you build together. The system can't profit from that. It can't sell you that. It can't control people who love each other more than they fear the world. That's why unity is dangerous, because it makes you free. So maybe the revolution we need isn't louder feminism or louder masculinity. Maybe it's quieter truth, simpler honesty, more courage to love when everything tells you not to. Because in a culture built on division, the most radical thing you can do is stand with the one you were told to hate. That's how we rebuild the bridge. Not with theories, not with outrage, but with understanding, with grace, with love strong enough to make the world remember that men and women were never meant to destroy each other. They were meant to heal together.